C card.
Perhaps, but I
would be awesome.
I think it's unfortunate that because of CBS and Showtime, they've been able to push people like Gina, Cyborg, Shayna Baszler, Julie Kedzie, and the best female fighter in the world, and I'm not just saying this because she's here, I have her in my rankings, has been kind of pushed away to the side and hasn't received the recognition that everyone else has.
It's a shame about the weight difference. You know,
That's,
you're saying you don't want to go up past
problem.
135, and Gina can't even get down to 145.
And that's the problem that Dana White has said with women's MMA. There's maybe 10 or so big names, but the problem is when you start looking at them, they're not all in the same weight class, and it's unfair to you guys to just throw you into a big pool and have you fight no matter what.
Regardless. He should just make a super fight. You know,
you don't have to have a women's fight on every show.
Yeah, that's what
I mean, and it doesn't always have to be within the same.
Be a league.
No, it doesn't have to be a league. It doesn't even have to be in the same weight division. I mean,
you
can
okay
have.
with that?
That's fine.
Tara, how many fights?
Has to start somewhere.
How many fights do you need to fight to be a full-time fighter for a living?
I have no idea.
How many fights per year do you think?
At
At the rate you guys are making now, at the rate the women are at now, if you were going to be a professional fighter, would you have to do one fight every month to survive?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Yeah. That's next to impossible.
It's so hard.
That's next to impossible for a guy. I
Well,
mean,
of course it
a
is.
fight a month, 12 fights in 1 year takes
That's my
such
point.
a toll on your body. It's absolutely ridiculous.
That's
Unless
my point.
You're
So that's
complete cans. Then
That's my point, though. My point is, you guys are at a pay scale where you'd have to fight every month to be a full-time fighter.
It had gotten up there. We were moving up. We were making a lot of headway, especially with getting paid and getting the recognition.
Sponsors.
And all of a sudden, the bubble burst, and then we're kind of back to.
Why did that bubble burst, though? Anybody?
Gary Shaw is gone. That's why he was the biggest promoter of it.
He was the biggest promoter of Gina Carano, not necessarily women's MMA.
I was also doing really well with Bodog as well, and a lot of the women that were there were. I mean,
I think he made it in the spotlight. He got it into the mainstream. As
to Elite XC's credit, they did put Cyborg and Shayna Baszler on CBS. They didn't have to push that fight, so at least they were looking at the big picture and saying we're going to try to have competitors for Gina. But I think that bubble is going to come back. The biggest question is, are you going to be a part of that bubble? Are you actually going to go fight for Strikeforce? Because right now, for women's MMA, that's pretty much the only place where you can actually make money.
Yeah, at time.
Speaking of women's MMA, there was breaking news today, as breaking as this could possibly be, but Kim Couture pulled out of a fight, the May 15th fight. So maybe Tara will get a phone call after all. What weight is?
That was 135.
Yeah, so that's your weight.
There we go.
Hey.
Putting it out there.
Even
Scott
though
Michael Famowitz.
Give her a call. Give her a call. No, but seriously, all kidding aside, Tara, if there's one thing you think you could do differently to get you on these big payday cards, what could you possibly do?
Quite honestly, the only thing that I can think of that's going to get me more attention, more recognition, is I'd have to have somebody backing me, some kind of marketing strategy backing me, getting me out there to the general public, or something like that. Or I'm going to have to talk a whole lot of trash on every single person in the entire sport just to get attention. That's not my style. It's not my thing. That's not what I do.
I was going to say controversy. Create it. I know that's
I hate drama.
Unsavory.
It's a shame because your fights speak for themselves. I mean, they're amazing. You know, I mean,
my fight with Amanda Buckner was nominated for one of the best fights of the year in 2006, up there with like Barnett and Nogueira and people like that. I couldn't believe it. You know, it was great, but.
This is not a problem that's plaguing the fight game. WNBA players don't make as much as NBA players. You know, it really when you talk about tennis and golf, maybe just there, and really not only in tennis are female athletes that make equal amount of money.
Look at women's soccer. Women's soccer was huge.
They had a league and it burst after the big after the big women's World Cup that happened in the United States. So, I mean, I don't think this is a problem that's only plaguing the fight game. I just think that top pound-for-pound female fighter in the world, needs to some way nudge her way into Strikeforce. And then once you get there, Showtime, CBS, I think then the rest will take care of itself.
Let's just quickly play out a scenario. Cyborg fights Gina. There's a winner. Who do they fight next? I mean, there's no one left to fight but Tara. I mean, a legitimate quality fighter.
No, again, it comes down to the weight issue.
Yeah, I'm
fighting at 125. And when when I grapple, I'm doing the World Grappling Championships and all that.
There's the controversy.
I'm down to 121. I'm like.
But isn't
I mean,
I gotta slay dragons my entire life. What the hell?
But aren't there a lot of women, quality fighters out there that maybe just aren't discovered yet?
Yeah, there's a lot of girls out there that have been training for a long time.
Right.
You know, they just haven't gotten into the ring for one reason or another. There's a lot of girls out there that are unrecognized, that are great, that are, you know, they're just.
They should build it up with the undercards, maybe. You know, bring some of these unknowns
I
and put
think
them in the
that's a
undercard.
great idea.
Well,
you know?
Absolutely.
What about Cyborg blaming her
They have
weight
females
issues
on the
on
card.
female
Brandon
problems?
Harris.
Don't you think that she kind of, you know, put you guys back just a couple of years? You're trying so hard to
A couple?
be respected. Okay, I was just trying to be nice, but how disappointing was that for you to hear something like that?
I was absolutely mortified, horrified. I couldn't believe it again because I mean I remember Gina when she missed weight, she blamed it on her menstrual cycle. Now Cyborg's doing the same thing, and it makes women's MMA look terrible because they're like, oh, well look at the women. They don't even take this as a professional sport. It's not a profession, you know. That is so not true. It just happens to be these two
watching
these two people that happen to be in high-profile situations that have the spotlight on them. The rest of us don't miss weight like that. I've never missed weight one time.
They knew they can get away with it, and they just did it.
True. Very
That's
much
pretty
so.
much what it was.
For sure.
Right.
I honestly think that is the case this time with Cyborg. I think that she may have bulked up too much and didn't really know how hard the weight cut was going to be or whatever, and then they were just like, well, it's going to go on anyway.
Yeah.
I tell you what,
So,
I think that might even
I actually
anger.
heard that from Josh Barnett. I read that he had said that, so I'm blaming him for that.
But I mean, I think that's going to anger her female fans and the female fans of MMA
Yeah.
more than the males, because we know what it's like.
Yeah.
You know, and we know that that's a BS excuse.
Well-
you know?
Cutting weight is cutting weight. Whether you're male or female, you learn how to do it, and you do it correctly, especially if you've been in the sport this long and you've cut weight before. I mean, I know if I have to cut a lot of weight, I taper down. I start 7 weeks out.
Right.
4 weeks, whatever. You know, cut your sodium. Cut your sodium. That it holds water. You know, you're
Besides
not going.
the weight thing, that whole fight, the
There's
Econo
so
fight was
much.
embarrassing. Like, it was just, I was looking forward to it, and it was a disaster.
It was sad.
Let's not comment on that. Stay tuned for the next soundbite with Tara LaRosa when we just cut that whole segment. I'm going to cut it down to something negative. I'm going to put it all over the internet. Can you believe she said this? Round 3 coming up next.